Balancing life with your fine art studies can be challenging to say the least, but it's possible with fine-tuning and knowing exactly when things are due. I have found over the past few weeks, the past couple of months, it has really required my time and attention to get things down on paper and understand what is due and when, so that I don't get caught out with a sudden due date and now I've got 3 hours to get an assignment in that takes about 2 weeks. Flipping nightmare. So how do I manage to balance my fine art studies and my life so that they work in harmony together and eliminates stress? The first thing I do is I diarise when assignments are due. First of all, I look at what assignments I have for which modules, because I'm doing a few, and then I take a look at when each one is due, so the dates. So what I will do, I will put in my calendar, this is when this assignment's due, that's when that one's due, and for each one I tend to note down what is required for those assignments specifically. So for example, with photography, I had to make sure I did a certain amount of artist research. I was also required to do film photography. So I had to make sure I had 6 rolls of film as a minimum developed. I had to create contact sheets. I don't have a dark room at home, so I had to make sure that I went into university to get those things done because that's where the facilities are. If I had that at home, it would certainly cut down some of my time, but my first and foremost priority is to get things down in my diary and then look at what each thing requires and the amount of time it would take. Because the one thing that I learned pretty quickly after the first semester was if I leave developing my film until the last 2 weeks, it's madness and mayhem. There was no point in me leaving it that late. And although it doesn't feel late, when there's so much to do and you never quite know how film is going to turn out, you know, have you got your exposure right? Have you put the amount of developing fluid in the container when you're doing your film? And the worst thing that can happen is you take the film out and there's nothing on the roll. It's completely blank. Now you've got to get another roll of film and take some photos again. When I think about all the work that it requires, I thought, right, no, within the first 2 weeks, I set this deadline. I am going to get that work done. I'm going to get those rolls of film done. And one day I went out with 4 rolls and I did the lot in a morning. I think it was only about 2-3 hours. I had 4 rolls of film, 24 exposures, all taken, all done. And then I went in the next day and I developed all 4 rolls, and then I was able to let them dry, go back in the next day and create my contact sheets. Now that was just one thing, but there were so many other things that I had to do. The other thing that I tend to do, now this might work for some people, it may not, but it certainly works for me. I would bring the date forward for when my assignments were due. So if they were due on the 28th of the month, I would say they're due on the 1st. So I would bring it forward. The 1st of the month, that's when that assignment is due. Now, I still have another 28 days effectively. But the thing about that is, if I leave it to the 28 days, in my mind, I've got till the 28th. And if anything goes wrong, now it's too late. If the film doesn't develop, if the camera breaks, I don't know, just so many things can go wrong with film. As wonderful as it is, there are a few things that can go a bit peak-tong. Now, the great thing is I have 4 more weeks or 3.5 weeks to make sure I can correct any errors, I can make any changes that I want to make. But that's a system that works for me. I bring it forward by about 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks, depending on what it is. Sometimes if it's an assignment, a written assignment, I might just say, instead of the 28th, I'll bring it forward to something like the 10th. I'll give myself an extra couple of weeks or so. The next thing I tend to do is think, right, okay, now I've got those things all settled down, all in my calendar. I then break my week down. I say, right, I work Monday to Friday. That is my study time. Those are the days that I have to get my work done, because I have other things that I want to do on a Sunday. And it is about creating balance and harmony between my life and my studies. And if I think, well, I've got 7 days of the week, then I'll take up all 7, and then other things that I want to do just won't get done because I've just crammed every hour that's available with my assignments. And you know what, I actually do want to go out and have a coffee or meet with friends or go and listen to some live music or walk on the beach. I want to do those things, but I want to do them without the stress of thinking, oh my goodness, I still have my assignments to do, I'm behind and I don't know what I'm doing. I need to make sure I give myself that space to get things done. So Monday to Friday, that is the time I give myself to get the work done. The next step I do is break those days down. So I will say Monday, for example, I break it into 3 chunks. I've got what I do in the morning, I've got morning to early afternoon, and then I've got like the rest of the day up until about 5 or 6. So first thing in the morning, I will do the work that requires my brain power. I will get up at about 6:30. By 8:30, I'm at my desk. And now I will say, okay, I've got till about 11. Then I can just get on with those assignments and focus and do my artist research and do my studies and concentrate more. Because if I try and do that work later in the day, it's game over, because by 2 o'clock I've had enough. It's just better if I take that time first thing in the morning to do the work that requires the most brain power. So when I think about my working week, I just keep it between that time frame so that I know those days, Monday to Friday, I've got my studies, and then each day is just broken down into 3. The things that require most concentration in the morning. In the middle chunk, I can get things that aren't quite so intense done, like making sure I've got my folders organized, making sure everything has all the references and put all those bits and pieces in. But then the latter part of the day is when I can start just doing things that don't require so much concentration. There is no point in me doing the easy things first thing in the morning, and then the time I need to concentrate, I'm trying to do that later in the day. Game over, it's not going to happen, and it's really going to go wrong. The other thing I tend to do is make sure I take a look at when things definitely need to be done, so that if I need to get some film developed or collect some artwork, whatever it might be, I don't do it on the days that I'm not in. Usually I'm not in on a Wednesday, so instead of me going into the dark room, for example, on a Wednesday, I will book it and schedule it for the days that I'm already in. So if I've got art history, for example, at 10 o'clock, I might go in at 9, but knowing it takes longer than you sometimes realise, I will tend to wait till about 11, 11:30, and I'll book it for then. So I can maximise the time while I'm at uni. So instead of me going in and out, I try and maximise my time and be more efficient by doing things while I'm there. Because there's nothing more annoying than you've got your whole day on Wednesday and you realise, oh, actually, I need to do X, Y, Z. Now I've got to go in again on the Wednesday. It's just not good use of time. So I make sure that I book everything in around the times that I'm already in uni. It just makes more sense and it's so much more efficient. One of my favourite things to do is to create templates. So I will go into Apple Pages and I will set up my page, because I know I've got my art history assignments to do. I know I've got my artist research to do. I create that as a template so that each time I'm going to go in and I'm going to do my artist research, I don't have to sit there and think about how am I going to lay this out. And then when I also put it in my portfolio, there's uniformity to the work that I've done. It's not each one is completely different. So it looks like I've thought about what I'm doing. I've had a plan and I've organized it, and it just makes sense and it does look so much better. There are some really good apps out there for helping you to stay on track of your time and to time yourself. Now, it's one I used to use all the time, but not quite so much now, which is Time Out. And it's brilliant because you can set it so that it will begin to fade out your screen and you can't access anything. You literally have to just walk away. Depends on how long you've set that to happen for. You can have it so that you can turn it off or give yourself an extra 5 minutes. But the problem with that was I kept clicking the extra 5 minutes time. And then when I found I couldn't access the screen because I was really trying to discipline myself, then I found I got really annoyed because I couldn't access the screen. But I set it that way. So, Now, My Saturdays, I have allotted some time, especially like just now, we've had a lot of work that we've had to get in. So I've just added some extra time. So Saturday mornings, I gave myself that time just to do those extra bits, to double check what I needed to do, to check the work, to go through it before I submitted it. I wanted to make sure things were done. And then that way, my Sunday was completely free to work on my novel. And I just loved it because that was my reward for doing the work that I needed to do. Now it's all over. My week can go back to what it was. I write in the morning. I will do anything else that I really need to do mid part of the day, and then the latter part I like to draw at that time. I like to use the third chunk of my day for just being able to unwind and get on with my drawing, because it is just so relaxing and therapeutic and I just love it. So being able to fit things in on a Saturday, like meeting up with friends, going out, you know, lying in. I say lie in, I'm usually up and out of bed by 7:30, so I don't even know if that's a lie-in. No, probably not actually. But one of the things I do is make sure that I'm flexible with what I do, because if I'm too rigid, that in itself can be really stressful, and I have to deal with whatever is most important at that time. One of the things that's very important is also remembering that actually, you know what, we're all different. This system works for me. Getting my templates sorted out for my work, depending on what you're doing, it's actually just getting templates in place. Getting things down in the calendar, bringing the dates forward, not just making sure the templates are in place, but also getting together the work, the bits and pieces that I need to do. Also, you know, throughout the summer when there's a break, having a look around, seeing what other artists there are that I can research, and then I start putting them in a folder so that I don't have all that to do when I get back. I already have several artists, even if it's just 5, you know what, that's 5 less that I have to look for. Instead of leaving everything until I go back, you know what, I just rather just get organised up front. It is too stressful to leave everything to the last minute, and it's just not something that works for me. So, you know, if any of these points would work for you, then great. But this is my system. This is how I balance my life and my fine art studies. I chunk my days. I make sure I have everything planned out and laid out. And it sounds like I'm always organised. Sometimes it works, and other times, you know what, my energy levels are just not there. Which is why when I feel like I've got loads of energy, I do as much work then as I can, because that way, the times when I feel like I am flagging and things are just not working out for me, at least I'm already ahead. So if that's the sort of thing that would work for you, then you know what, try it. Perhaps bring your dates forward for when your assignments are due. You know, chunk your week, do all the work during the week. I know it's great fun to be able to go out with your mates and have a hoot, but personally, I just couldn't be doing with that stress. I'm out, I'm partying, and I've got loads of assignments to do. I would rather reward myself at the end of the week with all the good stuff because I've done all my work up front. So that's how I manage to keep a balance, and it gives me time to do my yoga. I go for walks, I can do exercises. It gives me time to do my art project, other personal projects, and actually tidy my room, because boy did that need it when I finished this semester. It was carnage. That's my system, and that's what works for me. And if any of that would work for you, then take it. If it doesn't, discard it. So if this video was helpful to you, if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Do click the like button and subscribe. And also hit that bell so that you can get notifications when the next videos come up. I'm Denver Shy, and thank you for joining me here on The Shy Creative.